In the third year of his secret relationship with Vincent Hughes, he was still unwilling to make it public. At the party, someone teased me. "Vincent, Grace is so beautiful. Have you really never been tempted by her in all these years?" I looked at him clinking glasses with someone and felt a hint of anticipation in my heart. He leaned back in his chair and said nonchalantly, "Don't talk nonsense. Grace and I are just friends." I was stunned for a moment and suddenly felt very boring. "Yes, we are just ordinary friends." 1. After I said this, Vincent seemed to glance at me. The atmosphere on the field froze for a few seconds. Someone tried to smooth things over with a smile. "That's great. A friend of mine is trying to pursue Grace." "Grace, should I send you his WeChat?" "I haven't responded yet." Vincent suddenly put down his glass, stood up and walked behind my chair. He put his arm around me and glanced at the person who had spoken. "Okay, I only have this one good friend. You are a good girl, pure and innocent. Don't let your bad friends harm you." I pushed Vincent's hand away. I looked at my friend who looked a little embarrassed. "Just push it to me. I'll just treat it as making a new friend." My friend quickly pushed the business card to me. I added a friend. When I looked up, I saw Vincent's eyes that seemed to be smiling. There was a dull pain in my heart. I subconsciously wanted to get up and leave. Vincent held me down, took out his cell phone and turned on the camera. "Grace, look at the camera." The camera recorded my face and his. A handsome face with a charming and unrestrained smile. One of them looked a little pale, with a blank look in the eyes. After the photo shoot, he posted on WeChat moments. "Long live friendship." I suddenly felt completely bored. This is the third year that Vincent and I have been dating. But in the whole world, only he and I know. After coming out of the bathroom, I stood in front of the mirror and opened that circle of friends. A comment was made below. "Long live friendship." So I left early. 2. Vincent called and asked me where I was. I said I was not feeling well, and he didn't ask any more questions. He told me to have a good rest and hung up the phone. Instead of going back to my own rental house, I went to Vincent's house. Occasionally I would stay the night at his place. But the living room and other common areas didn't have anything of mine. All my supplies are stored in the bathroom in the master bedroom. Vincent doesn't want our relationship to be made public. I don't want to expose my personal feelings to others. If you can accept it, we can be together. This is the reason he gave me, and it sounded so plausible. In fact, even if he didn't give me a reason, I seemed unable to refuse. After all, I owe a great debt of gratitude to the Hughes family and Vincent. Now that I think about it, it wasn't his personal feelings that he didn't want to bring to the table. It's just me, Grace Fuller. I swiped my fingerprint and went directly to the master bedroom. But when I passed by the living room, I accidentally saw a strawberry bear doll on the sofa. That's not the doll I bought. Something so childish certainly doesn't belong to Vincent. It suddenly dawned on me. That circle of friends post tonight. He should have sent it to a girl. But I didn't feel too sad. After going to the master bedroom and cleaning out my things, I took off the necklace I had worn around my neck for 3 years. The pendant of the necklace is a ring, a gift from Vincent. But in the past 3 years, it has never been worn openly. Since it is something out of date, there is naturally no need to keep it. 3. On the third day of my trip to Hong Kong, Vincent called me. I didn't answer. About half an hour later, he sent a message. "I will keep the ring for 3 days. I understand what he means. We occasionally had conflicts in the past. He always treats things coldly. In the end, I digested it slowly on my own. In the past few years, we have gone from college to entering society. I silently followed his footsteps, from Shanghai to settling in Beijing. I never thought about giving up before. But now I am really tired." I replied. "No need to keep it, just throw it away." Vincent did not reply to any messages. I stared at the WeChat page for a while. Blacklisted his account. 4. Vincent's face looked a little unhappy. He poured another glass of wine and drank it all. I heard someone talking about her. My buddy seems to be serious about this. He even called me in the middle of the night last night and said he really liked her. Vincent suddenly put down his glass and said, "She won't agree. Let him stop wasting his time." "Vincent, how do you know Grace won't agree?" Vincent lowered his eyes and stared at his phone, swiping the screen from time to time. Because Grace has someone she loves, and she loves him to death. Don't tell me, buddy. Even if a god came, it would be useless. After he finished speaking, he took the cigarette box and went out, closed the door and left the noise behind. Vincent lit a cigarette and swiped the screen again. The dialogue box still stopped at Grace's words, "Throw it away." He took a long puff of his cigarette, but still couldn't suppress the irritation in his heart. He simply said harshly, "It's already lost." But the message was not sent, and the red exclamation mark was a bit abrupt. He was blocked. Vincent was stunned for a moment, but then laughed out loud. That's good. It's rare for Grace to mess with him like this. Let's see how long she can last this time. 5. The days in the port city passed quickly. A week has passed in the blink of an eye. The night before returning to Beijing at the end of vacation, when I get together with my friends, but I met a senior from high school. When Dylan Harper, wearing a black business suit and with a tall and straight figure, pushed the door open, my two best friends pushed me at the same time and started to make a fuss. I felt a little uncomfortable, maybe because I had drunk alcohol and my cheeks were hot. But Dylan stood there, his eyes fixed on my face. "Grace, long time no see." I stood up quickly and said, "Senior Harper, long time no see." After Dylan sat down, my best friend gently tugged at my sleeve. "Grace, I just posted on WeChat moments that you came to Hong Kong to relax." Senior Harper liked it that day. He has lived abroad for many years and rarely comes back. "Tonight I'm here for you." I glanced at Dylan subconsciously. He leaned slightly sideways to talk to his friend sitting next to him. At a glance, I saw his sharp and smooth jawline. He was silent and serious when he was in school, and now he looks even more deep and reserved, which makes people scared. I quickly looked away and shook my head again. He just said that he was just passing by. How can it be such a coincidence? I don't believe it. But when the party was over, Dylan offered to take me home. Before I could refuse, my two best friends ran away together in tacit understanding. Dylan didn't drink, so he didn't use a driver. On the way back to the hotel, I suddenly received a call from a friend in Beijing. "Grace, let's get together tomorrow night. Vincent has a girlfriend and wants to bring her to meet everyone. This is the first time. I may not be able to make it back in time, so you guys should just get together." "No, Vincent specifically told me to call you. You two are best friends." I looked at the bustling street scenes flashing by outside the car window, lowered my head and smiled. "We're just ordinary friends. It doesn't matter if I go or not. Grace. If there's nothing else, I'll hang up now." After saying that, I hung up without waiting for the other party to say anything else. More calls came in, but I didn't answer any of them. Slowly, the phone became quiet. The car also stopped. Dylan turned his head to look at me. "Grace, we're here." I didn't look back and continued looking out the car window. The scene of decadence and extravagance hurt my eyes. There is only numbness left in my heart. "Senior." I saw my confused yet empty eyes in the glass. Then the words came out of my mouth. "Would you like to come up with me?" 6. The moment the room door closed, Dylan held my face in his hands and kissed me deeply. He kissed her deeply and hard. I panicked a little and tried to bite him, but he held the tip of my tongue in his mouth again. My mind seemed to have completely exploded and everything was blank. My legs are too weak to stand. Dylan hugged me and held me against his chest. I smelled a very light scent of cedar, mixed with the faint smell of tobacco. It's a bit addictive. When he continued again, I didn't push him away. However, everything that happened next was not quite what I expected. "Dylan, your hands are too heavy. That's not right, you're hurting me." "Dylan, you don't know how to do that at all?" "I'm sorry. Grace, you've never had a girlfriend?" He stopped, panting slightly, and the sweat on his forehead hit my chest. It was very difficult to control the overwhelming tide of emotions. The dim light fell on his three-dimensional and handsome features. He seemed to smile, but it also seemed like I had seen it wrong. "Yeah, I was hurt when I was rejected, so I never talked about it again." I was stunned for a moment. It took a while for the chaotic memories to return. I did reject him when I was in school. In fact, I was not unmoved at all back then. It's just, fate plays tricks on us. "Grace again." Dylan brushed my wet hair away from my forehead. I saw myself reflected in his dark pupils. The stranger makes me shy. The experience this time is obviously different from before. I gripped his arm tightly, my fingertips digging into his strong muscles. He suddenly lowered his head and kissed me tenderly with greater force. By the time it was all over, I was so tired that I didn't even want to move my fingers. Dylan fed me half a glass of water. I finished drinking it in a daze and closed my eyes sleepily. When I was conscious, he seemed to hold my hand. Dylan. A very light and gentle kiss fell on my forehead. Grace, good night. 7. The young girl sitting next to Vincent is very beautiful. It's the kind of beauty that's stunning at first glance. But it seems that she is not as attractive as Grace. In the past, Grace always sat in this position. Now that there are new people in place, everyone feels a little uncomfortable. But after all, she is Vincent's first public girlfriend. Everyone was still very polite and enthusiastic. Grace really can't make it back. Yeah, Hong Kong is so far away, so it's understandable. Vincent, why don't we stop waiting? The girl next to Vincent asked curiously. Dylan, who is Grace? He smiled faintly. Just an ordinary friend. Then let's invite her next time? I'm hungry. Okay, let's eat. Vincent reached out and picked up the wine glass. The atmosphere gradually became lively. He was a little tipsy. The girl next to me drank some wine and became even more beautiful and charming. Friends were chatting and laughing happily. Vincent thought it was no big deal. Even without her, the earth still turns. Women friends still surrounded him. It's the same with or without her. Oh, what day is it today? Why are there so many official announcements? Who announced it again? Dylan. He was more popular than Vincent in school back then. Vincent suddenly felt something in his mind. What happened to Dylan? He posted his first moments today. Isn't it obvious that he is officially announcing his girlfriend? The friend handed the phone to Vincent. He saw a line of words. All old wishes have been fulfilled, and there are wishes for the coming year. The accompanying picture shows two clasped hands. Vincent recognized it almost immediately. That was tightly held in the man's big hand. It was Grace's hand. She has a deep scar on her ring finger. It was left over from an accidental injury he suffered 3 years ago. He comforted him at the time, saying that the scar was located in a very convenient location and could be covered up by wearing a ring. She was originally feeling sad, but was made to laugh by his words. Later he really bought her a ring. But from beginning to end he never allowed her to wear it out. 8. But now this hand is held in the palm of another man. And that man was still Dylan. Vincent suddenly laughed. Seems like he really finds it funny. He also seemed to be very angry. He put down his phone and stood up, his face as cold as frost. Dylan. The girl next to him was a little scared by him. He called out in a soft voice. But Vincent seemed not to hear it at all. He didn't even give her a glance. The girl felt very aggrieved and ran after him. Can I come with you? I don't want to stay here. Vincent grabbed her wrist and pushed her away. If you don't want to stay here, then don't come here forever. He opened the door and strode out. I felt that the emotions that were stuffy in my chest were almost about to burst through my skin and burst out. Without stopping, I got into the elevator and went down to the first floor. It was not until he got into the car and heard the roar of the engine that he regained some of his sanity. What is he going to do? Where are you going? Knowing that she is not in Beijing. Knowing that she had taken all the things that belonged to her in the house. Knowing that she is in Hong Kong now. Vincent suddenly punched the steering wheel hard. Horns blared. It was as if it had pierced through the deep darkness sharply. The cell phone suddenly rang. He swiped to answer. Mrs. Hughes' voice was as elegant as ever. Dylan. When are you coming back to the old house? Call Grace and you two can come together. I'm afraid it won't work these days. What's wrong? Grace and I had a little fight. She refused to talk to me and even blocked me. Mrs. Hughes smiled at his irreverent tone and said, Okay, I'll call her. But how did you offend Grace this time? Why is she so angry? Vincent played with the lighter in his hand and smiled. How would I know? After the call, he threw the phone into the glove compartment. But then he saw the necklace that Grace left in his house that day. The ring on the pendant is inlaid with diamonds. But the diamond is a bit small. Vincent thought that her birthday was on the 8th day of November. It's almost there. Why not buy her an 11.8-carat diamond ring? Then, as she wished, their relationship was made public. Then propose. 9. Dylan returned to the hotel again carrying a few paper bags. I was sitting on the terrace, wrapped in a thin and soft cashmere blanket, daydreaming. He handed me the hot drink with a straw inserted into it. This Hong Kong-style milk tea is the most authentic. Would you like to try it? Thank you. I took the milk tea, thanked him, and subconsciously looked up at him. It was cloudy and rainy in the port city today, and the temperature dropped sharply. Dylan was only wearing a thin windbreaker when he went out, and his ears were slightly red from the cold. You should drink some too to warm yourself up. Good. He agreed but didn't take the hot drink. Instead, he hugged me from behind. I sipped my milk tea. Dylan lowered his head and kissed my ear. It made me feel a little itchy, so I turned my face away to avoid it. But Dylan's kiss landed on my lips. The smile in his voice rubbed between his lips and teeth as the kiss progressed. Don't you want me to drink milk tea too? I subconsciously opened my mouth to refute, but I couldn't utter a word. He kissed her deeply. The milk teacup fell to the side, and the carpet was wet and messy. What was even more messy was his clothes. The hem is left with a dark color due to watermarks. It's rainy and foggy outside the window. There was a moist spring atmosphere inside the window. I was a little afraid to look him in the eye. I always feel that his eyes are too burning. He was originally such a self-disciplined and introverted person. But there are also times when he stares at people with lustful eyes. I had no choice but to turn my head away and bury my face in his shoulder. Grace. As if seeing that I was shy, Dylan's hoarse voice also contained a smile. He held me tighter, but the kiss became more gentle. While my consciousness was blurred, I saw our overlapping figures on the glass, shaking to blur. It took a long time before everything calmed down. Dylan came out of the shower and saw me lazily leaning against the head of the bed. He hugged me, took a shower, and put on a bathrobe. When I was blow-drying my hair, the hair behind my ears fell down, and I subconsciously raised my hand to lift it up. Dylan, however, had already taken a step forward and helped me tuck my hair back behind my ears. Thank you. I whispered again. Dylan seemed a little helpless. Grace, are you going to keep being so polite to me? I don't quite know how to answer this. Although it was ridiculous again just now. But now it still feels as unreal as a dream. The sweet aroma of milk tea still lingers between your lips and teeth. I felt like I was back in that winter night many years ago. It was already late when the tutoring session ended. The street was long and dark, yet sparsely populated. Dylan happened to be passing by. Hi Grace, what a coincidence. He was wearing a black coat, standing at the intersection, smiling faintly. In the past, he was very serious at school. So at that moment I was stunned. That night, he sent me home as a senior. Halfway through the journey, he and I shared a roasted sweet potato. It was windy and snowing. He stood in the wind's place to shield me from the wind and snow. When he lowered his head, his forehead touched mine lightly. But they soon separated. At that moment my heart was trembling slightly. At that time I thought this was the beginning of a sweet and innocent life. But who knew that what fate had arranged was just an illusory encounter? Whether it was several years ago or now several years later. 15 minutes ago, Dylan went to the bathroom to take a shower. I got a call from Mrs. Hughes. She wanted me and Vincent to go back to Hughes' house for dinner. I originally declined. But Mrs. Hughes said Vincent's father was there too. He rarely comes back and wants to see me. When I heard her mention Vincent's father, I couldn't help but tremble with fear. Like a prisoner who cannot stand the light of day. He was restless and his hands and feet were shaking and cold. I still hadn't recovered by the time the call ended. That year, my feelings for Dylan were just beginning to grow and had not yet sprouted. It was a phone call from Mrs. Hughes that completely changed my life. It also completely killed that feeling in its infancy. And now the gears of fate have reunited, playing tricks on me like fate. I feel like a pathetic coward. He didn't dare to let Dylan get a glimpse of his shameful and humiliating past. 10. Dylan. I took a deep breath and acted relaxed and casual. What's wrong? I'm going back to the capital. The flight is tonight. The hands hidden under the blanket were clasped and clenched at some point. The thumb of my right hand unconsciously scratched the old wound on my left and right ring fingers. It felt a sharp pain as if it was bleeding. But I can't stop. He just smiled at Dylan and said, "Don't contact me again in the future. We did this willingly these past 2 days, so no one owes anyone anything. Just pretend nothing happened." After saying that, I stood up and walked towards the room. I was afraid that if I stayed for one more second, my tear glands would give out. But Dylan held my wrist tightly. "Grace, tell me what happened, okay?" But I couldn't say it. How should I say it? When my mother was working for the Hughes family, she seduced Vincent's father. She was caught by a driver from Hughes's family and was threatened to have sex with him. After being rejected, the driver became angry and humiliated. He lost control of his emotions after being drunk and hit her to death with his car. Vincent's parents almost divorced because of this. I became an orphan too. But in the end, Mrs. Hughes adopted me regardless of past grudges and supported me all the way until I went to college. My mother's lawsuit was also fought by a lawyer she hired. The driver was sentenced to heavy punishment for intentional homicide. She repaid evil with kindness, which was very helpful to me when I was young. It is an extremely heavy favor. At that time, Vincent did not take his anger out on me because of the grudges between the elders. On the contrary, he has always been very nice to me. If it weren't for these 3 years of secret love, maybe we can really be friends for life. But unfortunately, no one can go back. 11. I pulled away from Dylan's hand. I could feel that his gaze was hot and painful. It enveloped me completely. But I still didn't have the courage to look at him. "No, nothing happened. It's just that I should go back." "Where are you going back to?" Dylan gently held my shoulder. But his hands slipped from my arms again and finally he hugged me tightly. He lowered his head and buried his face in the side of my neck. "Don't go back, Grace. He's not nice to you at all." Dylan hugged me tightly, as if he wanted to rub my entire body into his. "Don't go back to him. Even if it's not me, it doesn't want to be him." My tears still fell. It soaked his shirt silently. "Dylan, I don't know what to say to him. There is absolutely no possibility between me and Vincent. But the grievances with the Hughes family can never be sorted out. I don't want to hurt Dylan." Deep down, I was extremely resistant to him knowing what was happening to me. It's too bad, too unspeakable. It's getting late and I have a plane to catch. I grabbed his arm and pushed him away little by little. His eyes are very red. There were tears in my eyes too. But I still smiled at him and said, "Dylan, take care of yourself." He didn't say anything, but just gently wiped away the tears from the corners of my eyes. "If I'm not happy back in Beijing, tell me anytime." I nodded vigorously. I want to smile at him again. But those tears could not be wiped away no matter how hard I tried. 12. The winter in Beijing is very cold. As soon as I got off the plane, I shivered and quickly wrapped my coat tightly. As the crowd walked out, I spotted Vincent among the crowd of people waiting to meet me at the airport. He was very tall and his face was too superior. It's hard not to be noticed. "Mom asked me to pick you up." He came over, took my box and left. After taking 2 steps, he turned back to look at me and said in a harsh voice, "I didn't come here." I smiled without any extra expression on my face. "Thank you." Vincent seemed to grit his teeth. He turned around and walked with his long legs broad, pulling the box. I didn't quicken my pace either. Just keep your own pace and move forward slowly. When he arrived at the car, he had already put his luggage away. Standing on the passenger side, he looked at me impatiently and said, "Don't waste time. I have something else to do tonight." I didn't go to the passenger seat. Instead, he opened the back door. "Grace." Vincent's face was even darker than the sky in Beijing at the moment. I looked at him calmly. "Isn't the passenger seat a reserved seat for girlfriends?" He must have been so pissed off by me that he laughed and slammed the car door. "You're such a fuss, okay? Sit wherever you like." We didn't speak the whole way. Arriving at Hughes's house, I took a look at the brightly lit main building. My legs felt as if they were filled with lead, so heavy. Vincent also stopped. In the twilight, he looked down at me and said, "What are you afraid of?" "He won't eat you." "I'm not afraid, I just don't know how to face it." I was also ashamed to face the man I once called Uncle Hughes. Okay, I'll leave early, you come with me, Vincent said and walked forward. But I still stood there without moving. He turned around and said impatiently, "What are you standing there for, Grace? Come here quickly." He waved to me, a gesture that seemed so familiar. Just like the countless times he waited for me to go to and from school. I suddenly felt relieved and let go of a lot of things. In fact, there doesn't seem to be anything wrong with having ordinary friends. I smiled at Vincent and said, "Here I am." He was stunned for a moment. Then he glared at me inexplicably. But the pace slowed down. The meal was peaceful. Uncle Hughes has not been in good health in the past 2 years and intends to return to Beijing to live permanently. Mrs. Hughes was non-committal. Over the years, their relationship has reached freezing point. There was little communication at the table. Naturally, there was no quarrel. And this is the heaviest burden on my heart. After dinner, Uncle Hughes called Vincent to the study. But within half an hour, Vincent came downstairs angrily and dragged me away. When I went out, I couldn't help but look back. Under the light, Mrs. Hughes's face was solemn, gloomy and expressionless. It made my heart tremble suddenly. Over the years, I have lived in the Hughes family for a long time. Naturally, I had a lot of contact with Mrs. Hughes. But this was the first time I saw such a kind and loving face on her. Seeing such a creepy expression. But before I could think about it, Vincent had already dragged me into the car. He didn't know why he was so furious and almost drove all the way home. When the car arrived downstairs, he told me to go up in a cold and stern tone. "Once I move out of this house, I will never move back in." Just like the secret love affair between him and me. I don't want it anymore. I just don't want it anymore. 10 cows can't pull me back. Grace, get out of the car. I won't go up with you. I took out my phone, swiped the screen, and calmly looked at him standing outside the car door. "If you force me, I will call the police." "Then you can call the police and ask them if it is illegal for a boyfriend to bring his girlfriend home." "Vincent, we've broken up. I never said goodbye. Is it funny to talk about this now?" I thought it was funny, but I was too tired to laugh. "Vincent, I don't want to argue with you. I'm very tired now and want to go back to sleep. Didn't you say at the airport that you had something to do that evening? Go do your thing, I'll just take a taxi back." Vincent stood outside the car, enveloped by the darkness of the night. The look in his eyes when he looked at me was also deep. After a while he compromised, saying, "I'll take you back. If you refuse again, you won't be able to go back tonight, Grace." Teen. I chose to shut up. Vincent has a very paranoid side in his bones. It would do me no good to continue arguing with him. When the car drove to the downstairs of my rental house, I thanked him and was about to get out. Vincent turned around and called me. "It's your birthday on the 8th day of the Lunar New Year, which is next week. On your birthday, we'll end this once and for all. I want to say it's really not necessary. In fact, it's good to separate peacefully like this. It won't be awkward when we meet again. We can also get along freely with our mutual friends as before. My parents said that they would celebrate for you while they are in Beijing. You won't even give face to your benefactor, right?" After Vincent said that, I didn't even have any reason to refuse. "Okay then. Do whatever you want." I opened the car door and got out. Vincent did not stay and turned the car around and left. The wind on winter nights is very cold. But after taking a few steps, the cold wind blew through me. I lowered my head, pulled my coat tightly around me, and quickened my pace toward the unit door. When I was almost downstairs, I suddenly saw, in the shadow of a tree on one side, the orange streetlights lengthened a tall figure. Dylan was wearing a thin windbreaker, standing in the cold wind in Beijing late at night. I don't know how long I stood there. I stopped and looked at him blankly. "Dylan." When he walked towards me, the first snow fell in Beijing. Snowflakes fell on his hair and shoulders. But he didn't care at all. Just gently brushed away the snowflakes on my bangs. Time flew by and we returned to that winter. And Dylan actually took out a still warm roasted sweet potato from his arms. He broke the roasted sweet potato and handed me half. I took it in a daze until the sweet fragrance lingered on the tip of my tongue. Tears fell unexpectedly. He lowered his head, and his forehead occasionally touched mine. We just stood there stupidly in the first snow in Beijing and ate the roasted sweet potato. "Grace." His slender fingers fell to the corner of my lips and wiped away a small black stain. What should I do? I was kicked out by my family. Why? My parents said that there has never been an irresponsible man in the Harper family for several generations. So, an outlier like me can't go back home even if I have one. He was smiling, but there was no smile in his eyes. I felt a slight pain in my heart. A sour feeling instantly filled the air. Maybe the snow is getting heavier. So my vision was also blurred. But Dylan, I don't need you to be responsible. Besides, this isn't the first time. The remaining few words were suddenly swallowed up by Dylan's kiss. His lips were cold, perhaps as if the snow had melted on them, but the kiss was very hot, almost melted me into snow water. Grace, you know, I like you. I don't care about that. He held my face and kissed away my tears. Tonight, I'm making a bet with myself. If you don't come back, I will try to convince myself to give up and stop bothering you. But if you come back, then this time I will never let you go no matter what. He looked at me intently, and there was a hint of joy in the depths of his eyes. That joy was so tiny and timid. I was so soft-hearted that it was hard to break. 14. Still in the entrance, Dylan kissed me again, while helping me take off my coat and scarf. He grabbed my waist and pulled me into his arms. Our bodies were pressed together so tightly that they fit perfectly. I noticed that he was impatient, which was not in line with his character. Dylan, you seem anxious. The man used his slender fingers to roll up the hem of my cashmere sweater. The slightly rough fingertips caressed the soft flesh on the waist. The hot big hand wrapped around my waist again and pressed me into his arms again. He kissed her hard and deep. I closed my eyes and stood on tiptoe to meet him. Don't be impatient, Dylan. We still have the whole night. He looked down at me and smiled. This seems to be the first time we have met. For the first time I saw a genuine smile in his eyes. Dylan clasped my fingers and dropped down. Grace. Well, we agreed that it's for the whole night, not a minute less. That night it snowed all night. The snow also melted overnight. 15. Vincent is a playboy among playboys. His daily life is always full of luxury, surrounded by friends, and he is never lonely or bored. But these days he often felt that time was going too slowly. All the fun that I used to indulge in has become boring. In the room on the top floor of the club that is booked all year round, when friends were playing cards and billiards, the extreme boredom and the feeling of not being able to wait even a second completely flooded at this moment. Vincent dropped his golf club, took his cell phone and walked to the French window. The moment I swiped the screen, a WeChat message came in. These are some unclear photos. The background is a crowded and noisy supermarket. The man and woman standing in front of the shelves filled with goods were smiling at each other. In another photo, Dylan has his arm around her waist. There was no resistance at all in her physical reaction. Vincent's eyes gradually narrowed. If we talk about the photo of the hands clasped together before, he just laughed it off and didn't take it seriously at all. These photos were like sharp knives that suddenly cut off a piece of his flesh. I didn't even feel the pain, I was already bleeding. He is a man, and a man who has experienced love affairs. Naturally, you can see it at a glance. The two of them already had a substantial relationship, and it was by no means just the first time. Vincent saw his own red eyes through the French window. His eyes looked bloodshot and his face was almost ferocious. He tried his best to restrain himself but still couldn't help it. The phone hit the ground heavily and broke into pieces. The bustling and decadent life came to an abrupt end. Everyone looked at him with surprise and fear. But Vincent restrained himself and calmed himself down little by little. He turned around and looked at everyone, his expression calm and his tone calm. You guys continue playing. Don't stop. Then he walked out. I'm going to go out for a while. Don't wait for me tonight. I left the room and closed the door. The corridor was empty. Vincent kept walking forward until he saw a waiter. Give me the phone. He stretched out his hand. The waiter didn't understand why, but he immediately took out his cell phone and handed it to him respectfully. Vincent dialed Grace's number. When did you know her phone number by heart? He couldn't remember anymore. But none of this matters. He wanted to hear her voice now, to see her, to take her away from Dylan. Take her away from that stupid guy who could have tricked her away with just a roasted sweet potato. But Grace hung up the phone as soon as she heard his voice. When he called again, she refused to answer. Vincent lit a cigarette and bit the corner of his lip. He sent a message to Grace. "Don't force me to go to you directly." She answered the third call obediently. "I guess she's hiding from Dylan, afraid he'll hear her." Her voice sounded like a thief. Vincent felt his heart beating very fast and his blood seemed to be boiling, burning his internal organs. "Grace. Now go tell Dylan that you were just playing with him on impulse. You don't like him at all, and you can't like him. Send him back abroad. I'll pretend nothing happened. I forgive you this time and only this time." 16. There was silence on the other end of the phone for a full half-minute. Vincent could hear his own breathing and even his heartbeat. These dozens of seconds seemed so long that he felt as if he was suffocating. That night in Hong Kong, maybe it was a spur-of-the-moment thing. But not now. I liked him in high school, so it's normal to like him again now. And Vincent, we're just friends. Friends have no right to interfere in each other's private affairs of choosing a spouse. When I was with you, I never got your recognition. Now that I'm with someone else, I don't need your forgiveness for anything I did. Vincent, please move on. Let's part ways in peace." She finished, not waiting for him to speak again. "Hang up the phone again." Vincent held the phone tightly in his hand, not putting it down for a long time. He saw outside the window that heavy snow was falling all over the sky. There was also such a heavy snow last year. At that time, Grace was in his house and they cooked hot pot together. After eating, she curled up on the sofa and watched TV series. He slept with his head resting on her legs. Just before she fell asleep, she seemed to kiss him secretly. He pretended not to know at the time. But there was a hint of sweetness in my heart. Grace takes after her mother and is very beautiful. She is the kind of beauty that every man would like and want to marry. At that time, he was uncontrollably attracted to her. On the other hand, deep down, he doesn't look down on her background and her miserable past. So, from the very beginning, he told her that it would not be made public and it was impossible to make it public. Because he didn't want those buddies who grew up with him to tease him privately. Grace's mother hooked her father and Grace hooked him. In his opinion, it was not a glorious thing for him and his son to fall into the hands of this mother and daughter. He liked her and sometimes became obsessed with her. At the same time, he clearly told himself that it was impossible for him to marry her. He thought he had everything under control. After all, the Hughes family had been so kind to her. So she always listened to him and was well behaved. 3 years later, he almost forgot about it. Grace was also a straightforward and lively girl when she was young, who could take things as they came. She doesn't want him anymore. Be decisive and leave no room for retreat. As he wished they were just friends. We'll just be friends in this life. When Vincent thought of this, he suddenly took out the velvet box that he always carried with him from his pocket. The 11.8-carat diamond ring was originally intended to be given to her on her birthday tomorrow. But now it shines brightly in the box. Like laughing at him, Vincent gave both the phone and the box to the waiter. "Thank you for lending me your phone. I don't need this diamond ring anymore, so I'll give it to you." The way he spoke was unusually calm and gentle. The waiter was extremely shocked and wanted to refuse. But he had already turned and left. 17. I made an appointment with Dylan on my birthday. When I get back from Hughes's, we'll be alone together, just the two of us celebrating. When he saw me off, he was wearing the black cashmere coat I bought for him, and he looked exceptionally handsome. I saw that he was a little reluctant and lost. She stood on tiptoe and kissed him gently. "Wait for me at home, let's eat hot pot." Dylan nodded. But he held me in his arms and kissed me gently. It wasn't until the car from Hughes's family came to pick me up that we reluctantly parted. I got in the car and drove a long way. Dylan was still standing on the side of the road. The heavy snow fluttered down as if it was going to cover the entire city. I leaned against the car window and looked at him until I could no longer see him. Then I looked away. Vincent didn't come to the birthday party the Hughes family held for me. He had said before that he would end things with me completely on my birthday. That's not necessary now. Regarding what I said on the phone that day, as proud as he was, it was impossible for him to bow his head again. That's fine. Like the wind passing by without leaving a trace, they returned to the state of true friends. When I got off the car, I felt that something was not right in the Hughes house. It was very quiet, even the servants were nowhere to be seen. For some reason, I felt a little scared. Somehow, I thought of Mrs. Hughes' extremely gloomy and terrifying face that day. I stopped and pressed the phone in my bag. Made a call to Dylan. Hang up after 3 rings. This was a plot that we saw when we were watching a TV series together a few days ago. If you hang up the phone after 3 rings, it means you are encountering uncertainties or potential dangers. Dylan will definitely understand and will definitely come as soon as possible. 18. The servant took me to the main building and left. Mrs. Hughes sat on the sofa in a frosty-colored cheongsam with a stand-up collar. When he saw me, he smiled and waved to me to come over for tea. Her graceful face still looked kind and gentle. I even began to wonder if I was being too sensitive. Or maybe I just saw it wrong that day. Come, Grace, have a cup of tea with me. The green tea soup spread slightly, and the fragrance is refreshing. I picked up the teacup and took a sip. Mrs. Hughes suddenly stood up and said, I almost forgot the gift I prepared for you. Wait for me, I'll go upstairs to get it. I quickly stood up, only to feel the world spinning around me. Mrs. Hughes quickly supported me and said, Grace, what happened to you? You look very bad. Let me help you go to the room and take a rest. It's the same room you stayed in before. It's always cleaned. I couldn't open my eyes and my body felt weak. In a daze, I felt that the person supporting me seemed to be a different person. I tried to open my eyes wide to see who it was, but the vision was always blurry. Until a familiar voice sounded. Grace, you are even more beautiful than your mother when she was young. Uncle Hughes. I paused as if struck by lightning. But that brief moment of clarity was once again swallowed up by the effects of the drug. Then the head started spinning and I was pushed heavily onto the bed. The bedroom door was closed. 19. Mrs. Hughes stood downstairs with her back straight, staring at the closed door. Many years ago, Grace's mother, Sophie. It was also through this door that there were screams, cries, and calls for help. Please be kind and save her. But she didn't go up in the end. At that time, her family was in poverty, but Curtis Hughes had a huge business and was extremely arrogant. He fell in love with Sophie, who worked for Hughes. Sophie is a single mother, beautiful and weak, which can arouse men's possessiveness. Curtis Hughes met her several times and became interested in her. It wasn't that Sophie seduced him, it was that he raped Sophie. Sophie is a particularly timid and cowardly woman. But she resisted at first and even wanted to sue Curtis Hughes. But Sophie has a daughter, Grace, whom she loves dearly. Curtis Hughes threatened her with Grace a few times, and she didn't dare to do it anymore. And she watched her husband become more and more obsessed with Sophie. I have hated and complained, cried and made a fuss. In the end, he could only endure it with blood and tears. The driver of the Hughes family is a distant relative of hers. She was the one who planned Sophie's death. Curtis Hughes probably thought of this later. In a rage, he hit her several times. But in the end, because of Vincent's presence, the old man of the Hughes family spoke. The divorce didn't go through, but the two became a couple of resentment towards each other. Sophie is dead. For the Hughes family's reputation and dignity in front of his son, the truth of the matter was completely distorted. The victim turned out to be a shameless prostitute. Although the murderer was sentenced to heavy imprisonment, his family received a huge sum of money that they could not spend for the rest of their lives. The culprit left the capital with a flick of his sleeves and continued to live a life of luxury and superiority. She also adopted Sophie's daughter, Grace. Treat her like a half-daughter. Several close friends who knew about this matter all praised her for repaying evil with kindness and her noble character. Her son also sympathized with and respected her. But only she knows. Her heart had long been twisted. She had gone mad a long time ago. She kept Grace perhaps just for today. She felt that Sophie's daughter's screams must be more beautiful than Sophie's back then. She couldn't understand how there could be such shameless mother and daughter in the world. The mother seduces her husband. The daughter seduces her son again. She originally turned a blind eye and let Vincent just play around. And that was indeed the case at the beginning. It's just a piece of junk that hasn't been put on display for 3 years. But now Vincent has the idea of marrying her. Even Curtis Hughes still has evil intentions. Then it's not her fault. It was Grace. She was asking for trouble. 20. Suddenly, the harsh sound of brakes rang out one after another in the yard. Mrs. Hughes was suddenly awakened and turned around. Dylan and Vincent rushed in the door and upstairs almost at the same time. The bedroom door was flung open. Curtis Hughes was so scared that he rolled off the bed. His clothes were disheveled and his face and body were covered with wounds. When the door opened, Vincent suddenly stopped. "Dylan, take her to the hospital." He stood outside the door, turned sideways, and didn't even look inside. Dylan was a little surprised, but he didn't stop. He quickly carried Grace out. She was still unconscious, and Dylan wrapped her body tightly in his coat. Vincent just glanced at it and turned away. Grace's hands dropped from her coat. He saw the old scar on her ring finger. But apart from that, there are also some new scars. Even the nail of one finger was broken and bleeding. He didn't dare to look at it a second time. The house is very quiet. It was as quiet as death. It seems as if one's heart is tightly wrapped by dense silk threads. Vincent didn't know how he got downstairs. Mrs. Hughes called his name several times, but he seemed not to hear it. He walked through the living room and out into the garden. Like a walking corpse. Snow as big as goose feathers swallowed up the entire world. Vincent just stood there, not knowing how long he had been standing there, until he was covered with snow. Just then his knees went weak and he knelt dejectedly in the snow. It turns out that the one who despises you is the one who should despise you. It turns out that the person I looked down upon from the bottom of my heart was actually myself. It turns out that the one who is not presentable is not Grace. It was him and the entire Hughes family. He should be glad now. In the eyes of the world, she had never been with someone like herself. Because even he himself felt that it was disgusting to have such blood flowing on his body. 21. When I woke up, I found myself in the hospital. And Dylan was standing by my bed. When he saw me open my eyes, his bloodshot eyes immediately brightened up. "Grace, are you awake?" I nodded slightly. I felt a pain in my throat, as if I had swallowed a handful of charcoal. "Would you like some water?" Dylan quickly got up, prepared some warm honey water and brought it to the bedside. He picked me up again, put me in his arms and fed me. "Have some more porridge later." Dylan touched my forehead and bent down to kiss me naturally. I looked at him subconsciously. "Haven't asked yet." He seemed to know what I was going to ask. "Nothing happened, don't be afraid." After a pause, he continued, "Actually, I should thank Vincent this time. If it weren't for him, we wouldn't have gotten there so quickly." I leaned in his arms, slowly turned my head and looked out the window. "Is the snow still falling?" "The snow has stopped. It should be sunny tomorrow." "Grace, from now on, every day will be sunny." 21. Everything is settled. All those who deserved punishment were punished fairly and ruthlessly by the law. I can finally put my worries to rest. Dylan accompanied me to visit my mother. Her previous grave was in the most remote corner of the cemetery, because at that time she lived an ignominious life and died tragically. The cemetery was purchased by Mrs. Hughes. I was really grateful back then, but now when I think back on it, I feel so sad. I moved my mother's ashes out of this cemetery. Dylan bought a new cemetery. We moved to a new house for my mother on her birthday. There are green mountains, small rivers, and swaying green trees. There are also flowers all over the mountains. Mom must like them very much. I knelt for a long time at my mother's grave. Confess my mistakes. I blamed her when I was young, because I once hated her in my heart. How long did I kneel? Dylan knelt with me for as long as he could. I was crying at first, but then I smiled while hugging my mother's tombstone. "Mom, the person next to me is called Dylan. He likes me very much and treats me very well. If you know this in your grave, don't worry." Dylan held my hand. He spoke very seriously. "Auntie, I don't just like her very much. When the wind blows, the spring grass sways. But I love her very much." My heart felt like it was being brushed by a soft feather. It's sour and bitter, yet filled with hints of sweetness. I looked up at him and couldn't help but smile with tears in my eyes. I told him that I had just made a wish in front of my mother. He held me in his arms and asked softly, "What did you wish for?" I pursed my lips and chuckled. "All my old wishes have been fulfilled, and I have a wish for next year." Of course I can't say it out loud. If I say it out loud, it won't work. Dylan hugged me tighter and tighter. There was a smile on his lips and in his eyes, and that smile gradually deepened, with a soft color that cannot be dissolved. He must have also thought of that night in Hong Kong City. The moonlight that night, him and me that night. The sentence he posted on his moments that night. Now that I am beside him, I also said this softly. 22 Vincent's perspective. The year Dylan and Grace got married. I am just 30 years old. It is said that one should be independent at the age of 30. It's time for men to struggle. But at the age of 30, I have already started on the road home. I am the only one left in the Hughes family now. But Hughes' business is getting better and better. When they got married, I asked someone to give them a very generous gift. But they confiscated it. I also wanted to transfer some shares to Grace, as a small compensation to them mother and daughter. But Grace didn't accept it. She said, "Everything my husband has is in my name. I don't need it. If Mr. Zhou really has too much money to spend, he can just give it to charity." I am very obedient. He spent almost half of his fortune on charity. For this he received numerous awards, both large and small. But I am not interested in these rewards or false reputations. What I want is actually very simple and almost within reach. For example, when the weather is good, I can also sit in Grace's garden and drink tea with her. For example, when she is cooking hot pot, I can also add a pair of bowls and chopsticks and have a few bites. But I know very well that these will never be possible in my lifetime. She once said that we are just ordinary friends. But now, even ordinary friends have become an unattainable dream. People often say that a word can become a prophecy. But why can't what Grace said come true? Later, she gave birth to a daughter. I once heard someone say that the Harpers are one of those old-fashioned families that have been passed down for hundreds of years. Therefore, I have secretly wondered whether Harper's family favors boys over girls. I don't like Grace's daughter. If Dylan and Harper's family treat them badly. But how could I be bad to her? Why should I be so mean as to wish them bad things? When he heard that their daughter was just 1 month old, Dylan made an appointment for the surgery. It was an operation that couldn't be any smaller. Grace was still crying. When did she become so fragile and crybaby? She never cried like this when I was sick or injured. Also, the time she hurt her hand, even though a piece of flesh had fallen off, she managed not to cry loudly. Talking about the injury on her hand. In fact, the injury was caused by me. At that time, Grace helped me block the broken bottles without hesitation. He really liked me too. It's just a pity. I lost her myself. I thought again about the rings Dylan had given her. One of them is also 11.8 carats. But she rarely brings it out. The one she always wears is their wedding ring. A very simple and elegant Bulgari ring. The scar was not deliberately covered, but was exposed openly. I have known her for so many years. Count it carefully. All I left her with was this ugly scar. When their daughter was 3 years old, I left a large sum of money in a trust. When she turns 18 in the future, the money will be transferred to her name. I donated all my other assets. When I was 36, it was my zodiac year. It is said that there will be a disaster in one's birth year. If you can't get through it, there's no way back. But I didn't make it through. To be exact, that disaster was brought upon myself. It was the day when the first snow fell in Beijing. I closed the doors and windows of the car and burned the charcoal. In the final dream, it was as if I had gone back to our teenage years with Grace. She and Dylan secretly shared a baked sweet potato. I was watching in the dark not far away. He was spying on her happiness, but he was unwilling to give up. But this time I didn't hide. Instead, he ran over and held Grace's hand tightly. "Come back with me quickly, Grace. If you're any later, your mother will die." I pulled her and kept running forward. Finally, in that dream, I completely changed her and her mother's fate. And she was also able to be with Dylan smoothly. They dated secretly until they went to college. Then they made their relationship public in front of their family. Then you will receive a lot of blessings. Then they got married smoothly and had a daughter. And in this life, I will always be just an ordinary friend of hers, nothing more. End of full text.